Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Rebecca, and in my previous video, I discussed the top 10 best cities to live in. I will link that video at the end. Join me in this video as I list the top 10 worst cities to live in on a report done by Forbes Online. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So coming in at number 10 is Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Baton Rouge is listed as one of the worst cities in the United States. This is due to its high rates of crimes. According to Area Vibes report, Baton Rouge crime rate was at least 146% above the national average. In addition, the city has a high poverty rate. Although there is a low unemployment rate, if you look closer, you can see that the positions are for unskilled positions and they don't pay enough to rise above the poverty line. Statistics show that 17.1% of Baton Rouge residents live in poverty, higher than most of the other U.S. cities. In comparison, the national poverty level average is about 10 to 13%. Other factors that contribute to the low rating on the city includes frustrating traffic, noisy neighbors, poorly lit areas in parts of the city that can make it unsafe, and hot, humid summers. Baton Rouge is regularly in the pathway of strong winds and tornadoes, which occur often. Therefore, this can cause significant property damage. They're hard to predict, and therefore residents need to be prepared for these weather disasters. Let's move on to number 9, Shreveport, Louisiana. Shreveport, Louisiana has made it on this list for several reasons. According to a 2019 report, the crime rate was 128% higher compared to the national average, those including property and violent crimes. Secondly, the poverty level is very high compared to the national average of about 10.5%. The average poverty percentage for Shreveport in 2019 was at 25.7%. This means that more than 1 in 4 people live in poverty. While the city has a rich history and some thriving industry, it has struggled with economic growth in recent years. In 2019, the recent job growth was a mere 0.3%, and the projected future job growth was at 16.3%. This is compared to the national average of 33.5%. The unemployment rate is higher than the national average, and job opportunities can be limited, especially for those seeking high-paying positions. So, if you're considering a move to Shreveport, make sure to secure a job before you relocate. And lastly, the weather and natural disaster plays a factor. The weather can be a deal breaker for some people. The city experiences hot and humid summers with temperatures often reaching the 90s. Additionally, Shreveport is prone to severe weather events such as tornadoes and hurricanes, which can cause significant damage and disruption to your daily life. If you're not a fan of extreme weather, this might not be the best fit for you. Coming in at number 8, New Orleans, Louisiana. It seems like a number of these cities are located in Louisiana. So let's see why New Orleans has made it on the list. So let's look at the economic disparity. It seems in the city as there is a large gap between the rich and the poor. This is captured in the government statistics, which show at least 23% of residents living in the city live in poverty. An interesting point about New Orleans is that it has one of the lowest homeless rates in the U.S., which is at 6 out of 1,000. Next, the crime rate. So New Orleans has a high crime rate, just like the other cities on the list, leading the national list of murders at 10 per 1,000 residents. It is considered a dangerous place. Now, when we look at the job market, it seems that after Hurricane Katrina, the city continues to slowly recover from the disaster. The unemployment rate is higher than the national rate at least 11%. The city is lagging when it comes to job growth, and there's not much growth expected for the future. Although there has been some increase by at least 7.2% in the last 10 years, it's still behind the national average. And lastly, the infrastructure issues. The historical buildings are deteriorating and they're expensive to maintain. The roads have potholes or cracks and need repairs. These are some of the reasons why New Orleans is on the list. We will move on to number 7. Let's see why Cleveland, Ohio has made this list. So Cleveland, Ohio is known for its harsh winters with heavy snowfalls and freezing temperatures. If you're not a fan of cold weather, you might want to reconsider moving to this city. The summers can also be quite humid, which can be uncomfortable for some people. So if you're looking for a place with a more mild climate, Cleveland might not be the best choice for you. Now let's look at the economy. So while Cleveland has some economic growth in recent years, it still struggles with high unemployment rates and a lack of job opportunities in certain industries. If you're planning to move to Cleveland for work, make sure to do your research and secure a job before making that move. When it comes to the public transportation in Cleveland, the city's public transportation is limited and many residents rely on cars to get around. If you're someone who prefers to live in a city with a robust public transportation system, Cleveland might not be the best fit for you. And then lastly, we will look at the crime rates. So another important factor to consider is the crime rate. While some neighborhoods in Cleveland are safe and family friendly, others have higher crime rates. It's essential to research the area you're planning to move to and to make sure it's a safe environment for you and your family. Let's keep it moving. We are moving on to number 6, which is Detroit, Michigan. So Detroit, Michigan appears on the worst cities list, and we're going to see why this is. So there has been a decrease and a loss of population in Detroit because people are leaving Detroit in mass numbers. When this occurs, it is not good for the city, as it affects the economy, job market, and many areas of the city. In 1950, the city of Detroit had a population of 1.85 million people. Nearly 70 years later, the population has dwindled to a mere 674,841 residents. Detroit has decreased by over 60% over the last 70 years, therefore not experiencing healthy growth like other cities. There is still hope for the city, as there seems to be trying to fix some of the issues in the city. Secondly, Detroit may not be an ideal place for you to raise a family. According to an online website, NICE, using the U.S. Census data, Detroit received a C+ grade when it comes to raising a family. Poor rating on the public school system and the high drug usage, all these factors can negatively impact your family. Take into account the bad economy. This is due to the city's high debt level problem with infrastructure and a lack of job opportunities. Detroit's economy heavily depended on car manufacturing. This is the reason it's called the Motor City. As many companies lost market shares to foreign companies, they left Detroit. In turn, the economy has never fully recovered. The economy is mostly supported by public sector and small businesses. And lastly, the high rate of poverty in Detroit. Because of the high levels of poverty, there is not much being done to help the situation. And in many regions, there is not enough tax money collected to help to support the community. Coming in at number 5 is Memphis, Tennessee. Now this city makes the list for several reasons. So let's see why. So top of the list is crime. Crime seems to be a factor because it is considered to be one of the most dangerous cities in the U.S. Crime rate index shows that the city ranks 0 out of 100, with 100 being the safest place in the United States. What does it mean? It means that with that ranking, it is considered dangerous. Secondly, sales tax in Memphis is considered to be substantially high at 9.75%. This is considered higher when it is compared to other cities of the same size or larger. Be expected to spend more on sales tax when you go shopping. Traffic is a deterrent as well, although it is not as bad compared to bigger cities. However, you can expect traffic jams from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you live or have visited Memphis, let me know in the comments if the traffic is as bad as it sounds. So let's move on to the job market. So the job market remains stagnant, as well as good paying job. It is best to have a job before relocating to Memphis, or it may take you some time to find a job. The reason for the stagnation is that the labor market has not been able to keep up with the demands and need for employment. Many jobs pay low wages or salaries. This is why there is so much poverty. Let's move on to number 4, Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore has a high crime rate. It's ranked 5th in the U.S. Some of these crimes are violent offenders, drug and sex trafficking, mugging, and organized crimes. The rate that crime occurs is not uncommon, and the residents are advised to take their valuables out of their cars and to use a club on their car steering wheel to deter thieves. They are also advised don't walk alone at night in unfamiliar places so they can stay safe. Their homeless rate is high in the city, with encampments found throughout the city. It appears that the services and program in place to help the homeless is not really doing much to help the issue of homelessness, because it seems like the issue keeps growing. Keep in mind, the cost of living in Baltimore is considerably high, doubling the national average. This includes the high taxes Baltimore residents pay, which is over 0.5% higher on income tax and on property taxes. Let's move on to number 3. So coming in at number 3 is Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham, Alabama has a high poverty rate at 23.3%. This is compared to the average U.S. city, which has a poverty rate of about 13%. Even though the city is trying to work on the problem, they have a long way to go, and much needs to be done to improve the situation. In addition, the sales tax is high. So Birmingham is considered an affordable place to live. However, the sales tax is higher. It is 10% compared to the national average, which is 7.25%. Residents pay 3% more in taxes for food, clothing, and other items. When it comes to public transportation, this public transportation system in Birmingham lacks in size and availability. The amount of residents using mass transit is less than 3% and is considered low. And then lastly, the crime rate in Birmingham is ranked high at 112% compared to the U.S. national average. Birmingham is considered one of Alabama's most dangerous cities, according to the Area Vibe website. So let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is Mobile, Alabama. So similar to many cities on this list, it looks like crime is a major issue in Mobile, Alabama. The crime rate in some areas have stayed the same and increased in others. Some of these crimes are committed by people who are on drugs and dealing with addiction issues. The violent crime rate is at 1.75 times higher than the average U.S. rate. Property crimes are also high, with 2 times the national average rate. Due to the lack of resources and funding for the police, they take time to respond when you call them, so you may need to wait for them to come. Secondly, when it comes to the economy, there is a slow growth. The underemployment rates are considered to be high, and the income rates are considered to be low. In fact, the unemployment rate is at 5.4%. However, it does not factor in underemployment, which, as I said, is considered high. So the median household income is at $20,000 below the national average at $43,521. Because of the low income, people cannot afford to spend on extra things. So businesses are being forced to close. There appears to be a steady exodus of people who no longer feel like Mobile has a lot to offer them. There is a negative population growth rate in the city. If you haven't subscribed, you can do so now. Like and hit the notification button for updates on when I post. I appreciate your support. So let's move on to number 1. Number 1 is St. Louis, Missouri. Just like most of the cities on the list, the crime rate is high in St. Louis, Missouri. It is 4 times higher than the other parts of Missouri. The city has a grade of C- when it comes to safety, and it's in the 15th percentile category. According to crimegrade.org, there is 1 in 83 chance of being a victim of a crime in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, the statistics may seem high, but there are certain neighborhoods you should avoid in St. Louis. According to the Census Bureau, The median household income is 1/3 lower than the U.S. national average. It is good that the average cost of living is low, so it makes up for the lower income. The weather is another factor. It is very humid and hot in the summer, which can be uncomfortable for those who are not accustomed to hot weather. In addition, due to the rainfalls and longer growing seasons, there are high levels of pollen. So if you suffer from allergies, this will be inconvenient to you. You will need to figure this out. Lastly, the decline in population growth. There has been a decrease in the population in the last 5 years. The decline in the city can be due to many reasons, such as the pandemic, conflicts, or long-term demographic factors. The patterns also affect the economy, such as basic service, hotels, and restaurants. So employment in these sectors is also affected. So there you have it. The top 10 cities people are moving out of in the U.S. Let me know if you live in one of these cities in the comments. Thank you for watching.